Big hello to everyone watching this evening. My name is Angus Richards and I'm a current sports management student in my final year at the International College of Management, Sydney. And joining me is Caitlin, who last year finished her sports management high performance degree at the International Sports College Australia. So tonight we will be finding out what it takes to make a successful career within the sports industry. And what a great privilege it is to have one of the most successful and decorated rugby league athletes of all time with us, Cameron Smith. Cameron is a multiple NRL premiership winner, a two-time Dally M Player of the Year winner, a five-time Dally M captain, captaining at the Melbourne Storm, Queensland and Australia. His career spanned over 18 seasons in the National Rugby League, and he is the current all-time games record holder with the Melbourne Storm, playing 433 games. So a big welcome to the GOAT of rugby league. Welcome, Cameron.
Thanks, Angus. Thanks, guys, for having me tonight. Looking forward to have a bit of fun.
No worries. It's a pleasure. So firstly, I just wanted to ask you about retirement. Are you keeping yourself busy or what?
Well, mate, I'm trying to. I've got three young kids. They're a little girl, 13, another boy, he turns 12 at the end of the year, and then another little girl who's just turned 9. So, mate, they're keeping me very busy with plenty of school drop-off and pickups. But no, it's actually been nice to be able to step away from elite sport for the last 6 months and really enjoy a bit of family time. And it's been great just to sort of live a different life for a little bit, be more of a father and a husband. But I must say, mate, I've been enjoying a bit more time to myself to be able to play a bit of golf as well. So one of my hobbies outside of rugby league. But yeah, it's been very different, but I've enjoyed the last 6 months, spending a bit of time with the family.
Oh, very good. That's funny you say all that, because I've been hearing a few whispers about a potential Origin comeback this year.
Well, I don't think
those rumors to bed.
No, look, I'll put them to bed right now. I'm a little bit too old for the Origin arena, but going off last year's result, and I'm sure there's plenty of New South Wales supporters tuning in tonight. Queensland won the series, so the boys are in a very good spot at the moment. And the guy that playing in my position, Harry Grant, he's been exceptional this year. So I'll be a fan. And there'll be no comeback. Let's just put that to bed right now, mate.
All righty, good to hear. So just to set the scene for tonight, so we want to find out what success is, what it looks like within the sports industry, and we're going to do this by asking you about your insights and experiences, Cameron. So many of the students tuning in tonight are both from a sports performance and sports business background, and we want them to be able to take your insights as a sports professional and be able to apply them to their personal and their professional lives. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where we're going for the night. So to kick us off with the first question, we want to know about leadership. So from a young kid growing up in Logan yourself to this point in your life, with all the experience you've had on and off the field, you personally, what makes a good leader to you?
Well, there's many different factors, I guess, or attributes that can make a good leader. But for myself, and I probably understood this more as my career went on, was that I think the best way to lead or be a leader in any industry, particularly in like a team environment or a team sport, is just to make sure that when you need to perform, you perform at the very best you can. There's no good, talking all week. In my case, being a leader at the Melbourne Storm and being the captain, there's no use me talking about game plans and things that need to be implemented during the week and what we want to do in a game or on the weekend, and then me go out and not fulfil my role within the team. I think the most important part of being a leader is that you fulfill your role within your team the very best you can, because that essentially that is leading, is going out and getting your job done the very best you can consistently well. So for me, that was what I took away from all those years as being a captain and being involved in leadership groups, was that there are many parts of being a leader, but I just feel the most important part is that when it's time for you to do your job or get your job done, you do it the very best you can every time.
Yeah. And was there any leaders that you looked up to as a kid or even as a young footballer coming through the grades?
Yeah, well, I guess like people talk about role models, right? And I had a lot of role models growing up, but I in my career, the guy that I learnt the most from as a leader was Darren Lockyer, and many people on the chat tonight would have heard of who Darren Lockyer is. And I was very fortunate enough to play a lot of football alongside him and see him up close and how he operated as a captain and as a leader. And the thing I took away from his leadership or his style of leadership was that he seemed to be able to always perform under pressure. Whenever there was a bit of adversity that the team faced or even he faced personally, he always found a way to deliver and give the performance that either he needed himself or the team needed from him. And as I was mentioned earlier, no matter what stage of the game it was or what the score was, he always come up with the right play at the right time. So that was something that I sort of I seen very early, and I knew that that was something that I wanted to implement into I guess my skill set as a captain and a leader, was that no matter what the situation you're in, when a challenge is put in front of you or you're facing a bit of adversity, you always make the right decision. Well, you make the right decision more times than not. Put it that way. No one's perfect, but you always you come up with the right play at the right time, and it's just strange when you look back over his career. You some of the greatest individual performances and plays in the big matches come from Darren Lockyer, and that was just his calmness and the cool-headedness that he had in those big moments. But the reason why he was so good in those particular moments was because, and this goes back to all different jobs and roles that you may have, is that he knew exactly what his role was in the team, and he understood the opposition that he was facing, and he just knew and he believed in what the game plan was for our team and that certain game that we were playing, and he never went away from the structures and the plan that we had in place. He believed in it strongly, and he always persevered with it until those things happened on the field.
Yep. Well, thanks for that. I'll hand it over to Caitlin for the next question, and she's going to have a few questions around your success and longevity within the game.
Okay, mate.
Yeah, Angus. Just on your elite career, so as a whole, according to the NRL, the average career length for a professional rugby league player is said to be around 3 to 4 seasons. So that's roughly about 43 games to be exact. We want to know, how did you stay in the elite field for so long?
I was very lucky, Caitlin. I was very lucky, particularly in the position I played in. Well, there's some sort of luck involved. There has to be, given the amount of games I played and the time I spent on the field. But I think I must attribute the work that I put in away from the games that everyone watches. The fans and the general public, they see the 80 minutes on the weekend that all the NRL players play. But I'd like to think that I put in a lot of hard work at training, and even at home, in my own time, to have myself physically and mentally prepared for the matches that I'd play each week. But there's no doubt there's a little bit of luck involved. But I had my body and my mind in a place where it allowed me to play with niggling injuries at times, like most athletes do, and particularly rugby league players, because it is such a physical sport. But you're able to push through those periods where you're probably not 100% fit, but you stay out there for the greater cause of the team and your club. And particularly being a leader, you don't want to leave the troops or your teammates short a player, and particularly their captain. You always want to be out there playing. But I think the hard work, obviously a little bit of luck involved as well, but in the end it was, you'd have to throw in my competitive nature as well. Just always wanting to be out there playing and competing, obviously against the opposition. But in a lot of cases, I wanted to go out and compete against myself and really challenge myself to be better than what I was the previous week, and always want to increase my performances or my level of performances every game I played.
So Cameron, after 433 games, you kind of touched on your longevity in the game just then, but I want to know, is it more of an internal, intrinsic thing that kept you going for so long, like you just touched upon, or were there the external factors like coaches and the leaders that you speak about, like Darren Lockyer as well? Like, if you're going to pin it down to one thing that was most critical to your success on and off the field, like what would you pin it down to?
Well, Angus, it had to come down to personal motivation. And really that's what I think anyone in life, if they want to achieve something or want to be the very best they can be, they need to want to be there, and they need to want to do what they're doing, because there's really no point doing anything in life if you're not going to enjoy it and you don't want to be the very best at that particular thing. I just think you're really wasting your own time, and you're wasting time in your life doing something half-hearted or not doing it the very best you can do it. And I always, I retired. I only just recently retired last year, and I was 37. I turned 38 this year. But in those last 5 years, many people would always come to me and say, like, what else do you want to do in the game? Like, why are you still playing? Well, I had parts of my game that I weren't overly satisfied with. I wanted to improve on, even at the age of 33 and 34, which I was lucky enough to play in premierships, play in state of origin matches, and play test matches for Australia. A lot of people look at me at that point in my career and say, well, mate, like, why do you want to keep going? Well, because I still had things that I thought I could be better at. So in the end, it was about the personal motivation and challenging myself to be better every year. And now, like, be honest, when I first started out, I played my first match in 2002, and I just turned 19. In 2002, I had an enormous amount of improvement to make. By the end of my career, looking at, say, 2017, when we won the premiership, I maybe had this much improvement to make, but that was still there. And they're the things that you got to continually search for, to always wake up every morning and have that drive and that hunger and that motivation to go and do the very best you can do every day.
Yeah, that's really refreshing to hear, actually, coming from someone who's achieved so much in a sport that they just want to continue to get better and better. So yeah, that's quite helpful for the listeners tonight. So a bit more specifically about the Melbourne Storm now, and I'll hand it back over to Caitlin for the first question.
Okay, mate.
Thank you. So you spoke about obviously how you survived so long in elite sport, but I want to know specifically what kept you at Melbourne Storm for so long. So what is it about the culture and the leadership at the Melbourne Storm that kept you there for so long? And also touching on, your role models and the positive influences around you. Do you pay most of your success to Craig Bellamy and the positive role models that you had at the Melbourne Storm there?
Oh, Caitlin, I think Craig's got a lot to do with it. I think the biggest thing that Craig Bellamy instilled in myself and all the players that have been in the Melbourne Storm system was the work ethic and the willingness to work hard to achieve a certain goal. And quite clearly in our game, the goal is to win a premiership. Now that took us some time to reach that level, because you need a certain mix of skill and a certain group of people to be able to achieve that. But from day dot, when Craig Bellamy turned up, he instilled that the belief in working hard for each other, working hard for yourself to get the very best out of yourself, and really building a resilience. Not only a toughness physically, but a mental toughness as well, to be able to withstand, tough periods in games, but tough periods throughout the season. So I think that's the biggest thing that Craig Bellamy, or the biggest influence Craig Bellamy has had on my career. I still remember a conversation I had with him. This was in the end of 2002. He just joined the club. And we're doing some conditioning training in the pre-season, and we're running these hill sessions in Melbourne. And it's a pretty hard session. They run us for a couple of hours, and we have targets to run these runs. And I made my targets, but I made them, just within a couple of seconds. Anyway, I finished the session, and he come over to me and he said, "How do you think you're training?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm going okay. I'm making my times and I feel good." And he said, "Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But I've been watching you over the last few weeks, and I just feel you're training within yourself." And I said, "Oh, okay." He goes, "The one thing about, doing something in life, or, in particular rugby league," he was talking about, NRL. He said, "I've seen a lot of good players play our game. But the difference between the good players and the great players is that the great players are willing to take themselves out of their comfort zone. And if they're given a target, they don't worry about that target, that time. They just go as hard as they can for as long as they can, because they know that the result at the end of that session, they're going to be stronger and faster and fitter, and it's going to help them immensely improve." And I remember from that day, every time I went out in the training paddock, I'd always think about that, to not just be comfortable doing what I was doing. I was always pushing myself as hard as I could, no matter what it was, whether it was in the gym. Some people would laugh at that because I'm not a big guy, but I tried hard. Fitness sessions, speed sessions, all that type of stuff. Training with the footy in meetings. I'd always, try and push myself and not be comfortable. And again, going back to what I spoke about earlier, just trying to get the very best out of yourself. So I think that's the main influence he had on me. And now looking back on it, if he didn't sit down and take that 2 minutes out of his own time to speak to me about that, do I play 400 games? Probably not. Do I get to play as many games as I did for Queensland and Australia? Probably not, because I wouldn't have been physically and mentally tough enough to handle those amount of games. So for that, I'm very thankful to have that short conversation with him. As far as Melbourne and the reason for staying there for so long, it had a lot to do with the organisation and the people involved. And I put it this way: over my 20 years I had at the club, there was very few, for want of a better word, ordinary people that I met. They were all very good people, hard workers, humble, honest, respectful, and were there for the same reasons as everyone else. We all shared the common goal of being the very best we could be, and it was just it made it a really easy, enjoyable environment to work in. Some people look at us and, well, when I say us, NRL players, and go, well, that's not work. Well, it is. It's our employment. There's a job for us to do. There's an expectation on NRL players to perform. So being a part of that environment where everyone's there with a common goal and wanting to do the very best, not only for themselves, but their colleagues, it really made it an easy place to be a part of, and in the end, very enjoyable place to be a part of.
Yeah, great. I just want to ask a side question, Cameron. Is Craig Bellamy as grumpy as he seems?
This is, people probably want to know this more than some of the other questions. He's he's very intense, Angus. Particularly around training and the games. I think most people would have seen the animation in the coach's box during matches, and I think particularly last year, I think he actually put his foot through a wall or kicked a chair through a wall or something in the grand final when the Panthers nearly come back and beat us in the dying moments. But he's the type of guy that he really does wear his heart on his sleeve, and he cares. He cares about the team and he cares about the organisation, but he cares about the individuals as well. And really, all he wants to do is see the players that he coach be the very best they can be and succeed. That's what he wants for them. Away from training and all that, I've got quite a unique sort of relationship with him where, in the sort of, I guess, the second half of my career, I probably looked at Craig firstly as a mate rather than a coach. It sounds a little bit funny, but I probably looked at him as a mate before I did a coach, which probably helped in that environment where we work so closely together. But no, he's quite a laid back type of guy these days in particular. I think he's got a few grandchildren now, which has helped a lot of players around the training paddock would if he ever come in training cranky, they'd always be trying to contact his son and trying to bring the grandchildren in to try and mellow him out a bit. But he's when he's got the coach's hat on at the games, he's very focused and very driven. But when he's away from training, he's quite a relaxed person and he's very approachable. If anyone ever seen him at a cafe or whatever, make sure you go say good day to him and he'll be happy to have a yarn.
Oh, that's good to hear. Awesome. So sorry to open up old wounds, but we're going to jump back to the 2010 season for a moment.
Oh no.
Yeah. I'm a Melbourne supporter too, so amidst the salary cap dramas at the Storm during that time, how did you go about motivating your team week to week, even though you couldn't play for premiership points? And then how did you, I guess, learn and adapt your own leadership style heading into the following season?
Yeah, well, to answer the first part, I guess, around the motivation stuff with individuals, that was probably the most challenging part of the entire year. Given the circumstances that we're in, for those on the call that aren't aware, our football club was in breach of salary cap rules. So the NRL enforced a penalty on the club, which made the season pretty much void for us. So we had to continue playing. It was round 5, 2010. So we had to play out an entire year, and we couldn't gain any premiership points on the premiership table. There was absolutely no chance of playing or being a part of finals, and obviously that meant we couldn't be in a grand final or have a chance to win the premiership. So that was on top of the other penalties imposed. There was a lot to digest in the early days. because I think for the first week or two at least, it really was, I guess the best way to describe it was just a huge shock to everyone. And we were in shock for a good couple of weeks about what had happened. And there was a lot of uncertainty around the future of the club and the future of all of the players involved. But from there, I guess, when you're employed to, at the end of the day, win football matches, and you're employed to win premierships, but that's been taken away from you, or that opportunity's been taken away from you, I guess at times you start to question where you're going to find the motivation. So that was the big challenge for everyone, and I guess in particular the leaders of the team and the coaches. So I think from there, like that year, I guess that's where I grew as a captain, where I had to soften my approach in some instances around, training and preparation, and because it was almost like we're trying to manage every individual at the club, manage the vast range of emotions that everyone were feeling, because you could come in on a Monday and feel okay, and then on the Tuesday you were frustrated, on the Wednesday you were angry, on the Thursday you felt good again. So there was multiple different emotions flying around the entire club. So for me, I learnt that I had to understand or get to know individuals at a greater depth, and understand how they dealt with that adversity and challenging times, and really how to get the most out of them in those challenging times, and how to try and get them up, for an hour training session or a 20-minute meeting, but most importantly on the game in the 80 minutes. But there were things that we spoke about as a team that helped us. And I think that was the greatest part of it, was that, there were guys involved in our club in that year that had nothing to do with the previous years in which the penalties came from. But they were still penalised in that season where they weren't able to play for a premiership. And those particular guys were great. Their attitude was great all year, which, looking back on it, was remarkable. But we sat down and what we did was, we spoke about what was the most important thing for that team that year. And, there was, we had fans, we had members that paid, out of their own pockets to be a part of the football club. We had sponsors that stayed on board. Some left, but some stuck with us. So we knew that, we had to put in good performances for them as well. But then what we ended up talking about, and I think Craig may have brought this up first, was that you had your personal pride. Now, we all knew from that day in April that we weren't playing for premiership points and we weren't going to be a part of the final series and whatnot, but we still had to go out and we had a job to do. There were certain people that we were representing, but at the end of the day, what we wanted to do was walk off every game we played. We wanted to walk off the field and be proud of the effort that we put in, because we're still wearing a Melbourne Storm jersey. We're still representing something. So I think that was the thing that really got us through the year, was that, well, if you can't find anything else, make sure you carry a bit of personal pride into the match and put everything aside for that 80 minutes and just make sure you go out and give your best effort for those that have stuck with us, and obviously for yourself. So when you come off the field, you're proud of what you've produced. So that was really what got us through that year. Of course, there were challenging times, but I look back on it now and I think I truly believe I personally come out of that that season a stronger and a better leader, and in a lot of ways a stronger and a better person as well, and having an understanding of how to handle, some tough times that you're going to face, not only in your professional career, but in your life at times as well.
Yeah, we hear many athletes like yourself talk about those moments that help them to be better. So thanks for that insight. So now we want to dive into a successful mindset and what it is. So after playing 42 State of Origin games, 56 matches for the Kangaroos, competing in 8 grand finals, you've clearly experienced the pressure of expectation to perform on those big stages. What advice would you give to someone? It doesn't necessarily have to be in a sporting sense, but just in a general sense. What advice would you give to someone who's experiencing those same pressures?
I always tried to put those things aside, like the uncontrollables, if you will, if you want to think of them that way, like the outside pressure from people or things that you can't control. Don't worry about them. And I know people say, "Well, that's easy to say." Well, you got to practice these things. It doesn't just happen like that. You need to be able to focus on, first of all, understand what it is that you want to achieve. Have an understanding of how or what you need to do to achieve those things. And then once you have a strong understanding of it, all you need to worry about is the things that you can control to get to that end point and achieve what you want to achieve. Things that are happening away from you and what people are saying and things that are happening around you that you can't control, don't let it concern you. That's something that I'll always, from a personal point of view, and I'd always talk about with the teams that I represented, was that don't let things concern you that we can't control. Control the things you can control, and everything will be all right. And as far as expectation and pressures, well, I'd like to think that when I was playing, I had a greater personal expectation than what the expectation was from others on me or the teams that I played. So as captain, I'd have an expectation on my team and my teammates to perform at a certain level. And I'd also have an expectation on myself to do the same thing. And, have a standard that you'd live to every day, not just game day, but every day. You build a standard that you live up to every day, and that then just becomes a habit. So game day, it's not just a fluke, that you can produce good performances when they're needed. So that's the thing. That's the advice I would give about external pressure and things that are happening around you that you can't control. Don't concern yourself with it, because at the end of the day, if you do that, then all of your energy, particularly the energy that you use mentally, is going to be there in a place where it shouldn't be. It should be focused on what you're good at, what strengths you bring to your particular role, or your particular team that you're involved in, and then it doesn't allow you to perform at your very best either.
Yep. And more specifically, what are you telling your teammates when you're in a tight match, and you want to get them over the line and ultimately get the win? I personally think back to round 8 last year, Melbourne Roosters, Pappenhausen steps up with 10 seconds to go and kicks the field goal. Heading into extra time, for example, what are you saying to the teammates around you to get the team over the line?
Well, those sort of moments or those instances, like you have plans for them. So that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier about preparation and understanding your role and understanding, the goal that you have or where you want to head to and how you're going to get to that point. For me, in those tight matches, I don't have to. I'm not wasting energy thinking about, geez, what do we do now? Like when we went into Golden Point in that match, I wasn't sitting there thinking, okay, what can we do in these next 5 minutes to try and win this game? Because I know myself and the rest of my teammates, we'd done the work during the week to understand what we needed to do against this certain opposition to help us win the game. So come game time, it just happens, right? You don't need to think about it. It's automatic. So all I said in that moment was that, hey guys, we've got a game plan that we've just implemented for 80 minutes and it's worked. So depending on what happens, whether we get the ball or not get the ball, whatever it was, let's just stick to what we've practiced all week and just believe in each other and back each other. That's really all it is you can't just ad lib it. There's certain moments and points in a game where you get a little bit lucky, but on the most part, I believe you create your own luck. You create your own luck through hard work and preparation. There's really, as far as like talking about performing at a high level, the best way or the way to increase your odds of performing well consistently is making sure your preparation is done the right way every time. If you prepare the best you can, then more times than not, you'll get it right.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So we're going to look back at last year now. So Caitlin's got a question about how you dealt with the bubble, and then she'll follow up with a question about your book.
Okay.
So obviously COVID-19 affected just about everyone around the world. I just want to know, did it impact, this is your opinion, did it impact your mental health, your physical fitness, or your well-being more? So which one was affected more by COVID-19, and what were some of the strategies that you used to cope with that in a way?
That's a good question, Caitlin. It certainly was a difficult period for a lot of people, and we were put in a pretty unique situation where we had to relocate out of Melbourne and we moved up to the Sunshine Coast. And I know there was a lot of comments flying around about, oh, geez, they're on holiday and they're up in sunny Queensland. And like, that's right. The weather was great and very different to Melbourne through the winter. So it was nice to see a bit of sunshine and a bit of warmth. But we were put in a situation that was very unlike anything that we'd experienced before, and what a lot of the country was experiencing, especially Victoria. So we had the situation we were in was that we were lucky enough to continue working. Obviously, the competition got back underway, but when we were shipped up to Queensland, we were forced to stay in our hotel, and the only time we could leave was to go to training. We'd spend our day training at the one venue, and then we'd come home, and then we couldn't go anywhere else. And to be fair, the first couple of weeks it was like, this is pretty good. We're in Queensland. It's nice spot. The weather's great. There's a bit of room to move around. But I think after the first 2 weeks, for me in particular, as the oldest player there, it really became a bit of a struggle because I'm a husband and a father of three, and this is the first time really I'd been separated from my family for a long period of time. In the end, I spent about 3 months away from them. So that was, for me, that was the difficult part about being in the bubble, was that the times that I wasn't training, I got a bit lonely, to be honest. It was lonely. And I know I had my teammates and coaches and other people around there, but, you know, I like being with my family. I like being with my wife and my children, and it was something that I wasn't quite used to. And I'd find myself on days off really feel extremely unmotivated, to be honest, because in normal circumstances, you know, on our day off, our one day off during the week, you know, I'd take my children to school. I'd try and, you know, sit down and have a coffee or a meal with my wife, go and do some jobs around the house, or do something, you know, that was fairly constructive. Whereas when we were restricted to our hotel, you'd wake up and have the same routine every day, where there'd be a window to wake up and have breakfast. It'd be the same food every day. That wasn't, you know, something that you particularly wanted, but it was the food that was made for you. And then you pretty much had the whole day to sit around and try and find something to do. So for me, that was a really challenging period to try and get through that. But again, it was, yeah, different circumstances. But talking about, you know, the 2010 season, we really, I thought our club did a really good job at managing the situation that we're in, and the many different emotions that were felt by, you know, different players. And I throw the coaches in that boat too, because they spend a lot of time away from their families also. But I guess the greatest thing about that period was that, and maybe a big reason why we were able to win the premiership, was that being in that environment where we spent so much time together, where we're eating every meal together. You know, after dinner, we'd try and spend time in the team room together. The coaching staff would try and find ways to keep us entertained throughout the week. I guess that grew the bond within the group. And I guess that shows that it's proof that when you have a tight-knit group of team members who care for each other and are willing to sacrifice things for each other and be selfless for one another, then you can achieve great things. So that I think that was the positive that come out of it. But again, it was a challenge at times, and I thought we did a great job to help each other through it.
I might just jump in, Caitlin, because we're heading towards the end. But I've just got two more questions now, Cameron. So one related to ICMS and one related to education. So ICMS, the International College of Management Sydney, offers various degrees. So a Bachelor of Business, Sports Management, Property Management, Event Management, and a few others. I want to know from you, how important do you think education is?
Oh, extremely important, and particularly from having a career in the NRL and looking at the young men that come through the system now. These NRL clubs, they pick up young men at a really young age, at 16 and 17. So they pretty much finish their schooling, or some guys are actually still at school, and they're training with these NRL clubs, and they don't have the opportunity to gain further education before sometimes starting their NRL career. So it's extremely important to have something there to fall back on. And that was drummed into me from a really early age. My father was a bricklayer, so he's a tradie. And he always said to me, mate, you need something there just in case what you want to do, or the dream job, or whatever it is that you're hoping to do, doesn't work out, because you got to be lucky. Like you need a lot of luck in life to have things go your way. It doesn't always go your way. But everyone on the call tonight is obviously motivated, and they want to do something with their life, and which is why they're looking to gain this further education. So I talk to young guys all the time about always having something outside of football. And even sometimes it's in the case of NRL players, it's just as important to have some sort of education or study happening, not just for post-career, but like during their career as well, to make sure that their life is balanced. Their life is not just consumed by rugby league and training and thinking about rugby league all the time. You need to take the mind away and think about other things. And that was something that was encouraged a lot at our football club, and which is why I feel that the Melbourne Storm consistently perform well year on year.
Yeah. Well, we'll head to the last question. So ISCA and the ICMS brand is about to launch an emotional intelligence short course to working professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And, how important do you think emotional intelligence is for leaders within the sports industry?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good question, Angus. And I think that's what I touched on when you asked about the 2010 year, where good leaders are able to, manage their team or, people that they work alongside, their colleagues, and they're able to understand them as people, and understand certain situations, and knowing how to get the very best out of each individual. So that some people are lucky enough to have that skill straight away, but most of us, I feel, learn it over the journey of becoming leaders or growing as leaders. And that was my case. That was something that I learned over a period of time, and particularly through that year. But I think all it is being able to sacrifice a little bit of your own personal time to get to know others around you, to have that emotional intelligence of understanding those around you, knowing how they operate, how they get the very best out of themselves, and what motivates them. And as I said, there's many parts of being a good leader, but understanding your team, and understanding everyone's role and what strengths they bring to that certain team. You're not going to go wrong many times.
Yeah. And where to now for the future? Are you planning to use your leadership attributes and your experience in the future post?
Well, mate, I still love the game of rugby league, and I've still got a passion to be involved in the sport. And I guess particularly over the last 2 years of my career, there was a lot of changes in our team where a lot of the guys that I played alongside for a long period of time had either moved on to other teams, or most of them retired. So there was a lot of young guys that come through. So I spent, the best part of the last 2 years of my career, I guess, mentoring, sometimes coaching these younger guys. And it was something that I really enjoyed. It was probably something that, kept my love of the game over the last 2 years, wanting to go and help these guys be the very best they can be. So I guess that's probably the space I'll move into. Touching on sort of coaching, we were talking about Craig Bellamy earlier. I don't want to look like him up in a coaching box, mate. That's the last thing I want to do. But
understandable.
Yeah, like if I still want to be involved in the game, and I really enjoy helping young people get the very best out of themselves, that's probably the space I'm looking at as far as being a coach or mentor, and probably something a little bit more specific within the game rather than being a head coach of a club.
Yeah, awesome. Alrighty, well, I think we'll wrap it up there. That's all we have time for tonight. But thank you so much, Cameron, for your insights and your knowledge. And, a lot of the students and people tuning in tonight will have, valued your insights, and we'll be able to see what makes success in the sporting industry, both on and off the field. So, yeah, thanks again, and cheers.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, guys. Hope you got something out of it.
Awesome.